Welcome, enthusiasts of all kinds. It's time for a quick news roundup of things that happened in the theme park cruising and EV world that I thought was interesting. So thought I'd take a little bit of time, share my thoughts, and as a bonus, tell you the correct way to think about them. Carnival is considering a fuel surcharge. Now, to be clear, they're always considering a fuel surcharge. This just happened to come up, I guess, in the last earnings call. But it's funny how the last time we had to deal with a fuel surcharge was under a Democrat administration. Very curious. Anyway, this is actually interesting because in Carnival's contract, it does say they can implement a fuel surcharge at any time. I suspect all the major cruise lines, I suspect all the cruise lines have this, airlines too, probably. And don't know how they would do that since you prepay the ticket. Anyway, let me tell you, what is forestalling this? What is preventing the cruise lines from implementing a fuel surcharge now is, well, actually, it's Biden inflation. You see, the fuel that they're getting now was either contracted or paid for a while ago in Trump dollars. But we're all paying for our cruises now in hyperinflated Biden dollars. So the relative dollar cost of the fuel for a particular cruise, it probably works out in their favor. And right now, they probably just don't want to rock the boat. Now, I mentioned, remember, in the Margaritaville final decree that, well, if we still had the president's energy policy of energy independence, and by president, I mean Donald Trump, of course, we'd all be paying less for our cruises, less for fuel, and less for everything else. So thanks, Democrats. I have good and relieving news in a way. So everybody, remember, wear your sunscreen and wear your UV shirts. I have been putting this off for a few years. I know I live in Miami, but I just got back from the dermatologist and everything is A-okay. And yes, with all the time I spend in the parks, on the ships, riding, walking, whatever, you know, you do get a little bit concerned. But I am very good about wearing sunscreen, right? Probably not 100%, but probably more than most people. And yes, I can tell you that, well, it works, well, at least in my case. And unfortunately, I inherited, you know, one side of the family's straight off the Mayflower skin. So yes, I do try to be very careful about wearing your sunscreen. However, I do want to remind everybody to always and only use reef-safe mineral sunscreen. Otherwise, I'm going to be asking you, why do you hate coral? The weekend before last was the last voyage of the Disney Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. I know, so sad. The project that everybody knew was going to fail, except of course the Disney executives. You know, funny how that seems to always work out that way. To remind, it failed because it was Disney Star Wars and not real Star Wars. Yes, there's a difference. Yes, I'm gatekeeping, and yes, I'm right. Anyway, let's think about how it was able to last 18 months. Pretty simple. The Starcruiser simply, drew away a number of Disney Cruise Line guests. There are plenty of Disney adults and pixie dusters with plenty of money to take probably several Disney Cruise Line sailings every year. So the Starcruiser to them was just a replacement for a Disney Cruise Line sailing. Don't worry, DCL's fine. I'm sure they sold the space. You know, one of the few bright spots of the company right now. So once they finally exhausted, you know, this group of people, there was no one left to book because despite the whole like choose your path and whatever, we all know the ending, right? There's a lightsaber battle between that girl and the kid who whines all the time. So yeah, why bother to go back? Now I do want to make one thing very clear. This was not a failure of immersive entertainment. It was not a failure of the cast. It was not a failure of the culinary team. It was probably not even the price. It failed because Star Wars fans are not going to pay that much for Disney as opposed to real Star Wars. There you go. That simple. Everybody knew this was going to happen, so no surprises. Seems Norwegian caused a little bit of drama when they decided to eliminate their spa category stateroom. Okay, first I will say I think Norwegian is being pretty open about this. I don't think they're trying to fool anybody. Personally, I think what happened was some bean counter determined that having that completely separate category of staterooms with a relatively arbitrary designation caused sales problems, right? Because it's kind of a virtual category. There's nothing really different about them, as I understand, other than they are near the spa. and they get upgraded bathroom amenities and a robe. Okay, probably not enough. So I suspect it actually created more problems during the sales process because, some people, they want that place on the ship, but they don't want the spa, or some people, they want, an aft balcony or near the aft of the ship, but they still want the spa, and it just probably caused more problems. So they eliminated it in terms of just inventory simplification or product simplification. So now you can get your mini suite anywhere, and then you can buy your spa pass anywhere. And I know it just kind of makes it easier, and it makes sense to me. I had a spa category on Carnival once, and I think it was Carnival Conquest, and I booked that because it was only $9 more than a regular stateroom. So clearly they're trying to, get rid of, not really get rid of them, but $9 for the spa? Yeah, no, it wasn't $9 per day. I think the actual total was $9 more. So yeah, it seemed there were some inventory problems there, and that's, I suspect, what they're trying to solve. So, well, good on Norwegian. I think it's probably going to work out better for everybody for a change. A couple weeks ago, there was a story going around about a new EV battery plant in Kansas that requires its own dedicated coal-fired power plant to generate electricity. That's only partially true. Here's the thing. That power station was scheduled to be decommissioned because a newer, more efficient plant had been constructed, but that just meant it was excess capacity, meaning that excess capacity is probably why the battery plant was built in, or is going to be built in, that location. Factories take up a lot of electricity. This was no surprise to anybody. In fact, I would expect the utility to have shopped around this excess capacity, and they landed a customer. Okay, that's just how things work. However, there is a little bit more to the story, and of course, it involves, well, dumb Democrats. So remember the scene in 9 to 5 when they were touring the office at the end, and the CEO comes back and they're explaining this program they have in the office, and he turns to them and says, okay, it looks good, but let's get rid of this because there's no sense in priming the pump, or there's no point in keeping priming the pump, whatever. You know the line. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, what the hell's wrong with you? The reason that is appropriate is, guess what? In 2022, the United States, produced a record number of EV batteries, and this plant was benefited from $6 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act, but the plant only cost $4 billion. So we're already producing a lot of batteries. We don't need the government building battery plants, or we don't need the government paying off companies to build battery plants. So what's up with that? Well, we all know what's up with that. Democrat voters got played again with a payout to a giant corporation that doesn't need the money, and I guess an extra $2 billion for the politicians. Yeah, we know where it's going. So yeah, thanks, Joe Biden. And back to Carnival. I really wish MSC would do something. Anyway, the wagons. Yes, Carnival has officially, or at least restated their policy banning the wagons. And the statement they made was, no, I'm going to call BS on that. They said they're doing it because the wheels damaged the floor or something like that. No. The wagon wheels, they do not damage the floor any more than a regular stroller or a wheelchair or an ECV. So I don't know why they had to come up with this story, which doesn't make any sense, because all they had to do was look a couple of years back at Walt Disney World and see what they did. Walt Disney World banned the wagons. I think Universal did too, and I'm pretty sure SeaWorld did not, although I have no need for one, so whatever. Anyway, Walt Disney World, they banned the wagons because they're just a pain in the ass for everybody. They're harder to control. They take up more space because they're pulled behind the guest. They are difficult on the pathway. They are easier to run into, right? And when you park them, they take up more space than a regular stroller. So there were a lot of just logistical reasons for them to eliminate them, and I think it worked out very well. So Carnival, I don't know why you had to come up with this weird and elaborate story about the floors. Just tell us the truth, because yeah, this is why we don't trust you. Well, that's our little news roundup, and I just want to put a little reminder. We love everybody out there, including my own personal FBI agent. Maybe one day I'll see you on the road, in the parks, or on board.